सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति। सदाशिवसमारम्भाम् शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्ताम् वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादम् शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं। शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। सर्ववेदान्तसिद्धान्त गोचरं तमगोचरं गोविन्दं परमानन्दं सद्गुरुं प्रणतोऽस्म्यहम्।
So we were discussing the qualification of a student. So we have seen Viveka. What is Viveka? Nitya Anitya Viveka. The ability to discriminate between the permanent and the impermanent, which ultimately culminates after knowledge in the knowledge that Brahman alone is the reality, truth, the world is an illusion. So from this Viveka we saw, because everything of the world is anityam, this person develops vairagya towards anityam. Vairagya is lack of interest, lack of taste, because an impermanent thing cannot give permanent happiness. Now we enter into the Shama, the Shatka Sampatti, the sixfold wealth. So first is Shamaha, verse number 22. Virajya Vishayavratat Dosha Drishtya Muhurmuhu Swalakshye Niyatavastha Manasa Shama Uchyate. This is called Shama. So now in Tattvabodha, what is the definition of Shama? Shamaha Mano Nigraha. One short word, short and sweet definition. Shamaha Mano Nigraha. The control over the mind is called Shama. That is the definition according to Tattvabodha. The same thing is put in a different way, with a little more detail. So what is this Shama? That ability of the mind to remain quiet. How does it become quiet? Virajya Vishaya Vratat. By withdrawing itself from Vrata. Vrata means multitude, group. From Vishaya Vrata, from the group of sense objects, that ability of the mind to become quiet after having withdrawn from the sense objects. Why does it withdraw? Dosha drishtya muhurmuhu, because it sees only dosha drishti there. It only sees defects there. The mind sees defects in the Vishayas, the sense objects, and therefore it withdraws. But after withdrawing, what does it do? Swalakshe niyata avastha. So if I have to put the whole sentence, that ability of the mind to become quiet after having withdrawn itself from the sense object and after having placed itself, after having focused upon the chosen goal. Swalakshe means chosen goal. Niyata avastha, that ability to rest constantly. That state, avastha means the state. So once again, that ability of the mind to become quiet after having withdrawn from the sense objects and after having focused itself upon the chosen goal. This ability of the mind to become quiet is called shama. Clear? Short and sweet is shamaha mano nigraha. Bas. The control over the mind, the quietude of the mind, that is called shama. Peaceful state of the mind. That ability to keep the mind at peace, that ability is called shama. This is the first one. So we can say quietening ability. So yesterday we had seen quietening ability. The quietening ability of the mind is called shama. So yesterday we had seen why these qualifications are necessary. Viveka discriminates between what is nitya and anitya. Vairagya develops disinterest towards anitya. Mumukshutvam shows interest towards nitya. So both are necessary. Disinterest towards anitya and interest upon nitya. But now the mind has to shift from anitya to nitya. This shifting of attention from anitya to nitya demands certain qualification for the mind. These qualifications are being enumerated. So what is the first one? Shama, quietening ability of the mind. Only such a mind can do this. Do this shift. So now the next one. Verse number 23. Vishayebhyah paravartya sthapanam swasvagolake ubhayeshamindriyanam sadamah parikirtitah. This is called Dhamma. So what is Dhamma? Tattvabodha definition. What is Tattvabodha definition? Indriya nigraha, control over the sense organs. Short and sweet. But now Viveka Chudamani is an elaboration. What do you mean? So a little elaboration is given. Now, before entering into this definition, we have to understand what is Golaka and what is Indriya. What is the difference? What is Golaka? The physical instrument, the physical fleshy instrument is called Golaka. For example, eye. Chakshu Golaka means the physical eye which you see in yourself, which you see in others. This physical fleshy eye is called Chakshu Golaka. The ability to see is called Indriya. Chakshur Indriya. So there is a difference between Indriya and Golaka. So what you see, this fleshy thing is called Golaka. The ability to see, the power to see is called Indriya. So now totally how many indriyas are there? Here it is said, Ubhayesham indriyanam, both the indriyas. Now what are these both? 5 karmendriyas, 5 jnanendriyas. So what are the 5 jnanendriyas? Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasagandha. That by which you come to know this, they are called the indriyas. Jnanendriyas because it gives you knowledge about the outer world. So what are the jnanendriyas? Ears. It is called the organ of hearing. Skin. It is the organ of touch. Eyes. The organ of seeing. Tongue. The organ of taste. And then nose, the organ of smell. Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasagandha. Through these jnanendriyas, you gain the knowledge from the outer world. Now, what are the 5 karmendriyas? With the karmendriyas, you perform action in the outer world. So, what are the 5 karmendriyas? Hands, legs, then the organ of waste removal, anus, then organ of reproduction, the genital organ, and then 5th one, the organ of speech, the tongue. 5 karmendriyas. Remember, they are indriyas. Indriyas means what? It is not the physical thing. For example, hand. It is not the hand which we are talking of. We are talking of the ability to make the physical hand function. That ability. So even if a person's hand is chopped off, amputated, even then he has that ability, but the golaka is missing. It is said that when this hand etc. is chopped off, especially for the soldiers etc., after war etc., for few days he still feels that his hand is there. So he tries to use the hand, but hand is not there. Ability is there. It takes mind some time to come to the reality that the physical hand is missing. So these two have to be very clearly understood. One is indriya, the second is golaka. So in a dead person, what is present? In a dead person, golaka is present. What is missing? Indriya is missing. Clear? Now come to this definition. Vishayebhyah paravartya sthapanam swaswagolake ubhayesham indriyanam sadamaha parikirtitaha. Damaha is the ability to withdraw the indriyas from the vishayas and place those indriyas upon its own golaka. The ability to withdraw the indriya from the vishaya and place it upon its own golaka. Now what does it mean? Ability to withdraw the indriya and place it upon the golaka. What does it mean? It simply means control over the sense organs. Bas. Indriya nigraha. Not allowing the ability to, operate the indriyas unnecessarily. Vishayas are there, indriya is there, you have the ability to operate upon the vishayas, but you are not operating upon the vishayas, you are not making use of the power to operate upon the vishayas, you are keeping that power with yourself. Now where should the power of indriya be? It should be in the golaka itself. It's a roundabout definition, but there is clarity there. So it is the ability of what? It is the ability of the mind. That ability of the mind with which it doesn't allow the indriyas to unnecessarily operate upon the vishayas. Keeping that ability of operating the indriyas upon its own golakas. Keeping it reserved. Able to understand? In short, control over your sense organs. Bas. For example, when somebody is talking to you harshly, you feel like giving to, you have the anger also, You are irritated also. So Shama is gone. But at least at the level of Dhamma, you practice. You want to beat him, but you are not allowing the hand to raise. Vishaya is there. Indriya, the ability is also there, but you are not unnecessarily operating that ability, making use of the ability, because you know the consequences will be terrible. Isn't it? So the control at the body level, though at the mind level there is no control. You are cursing that fellow, but at the bodily level there is control. That is called Dhamma. So what can we name this ability? Controlling or disciplining ability. It's a disciplining ability of the mind. The ability to discipline the sense organs. The ability to keep the indriyas in control. That controlling or disciplining ability is called Dhamma. Now the third one, the very same sloka you have, we'll read that also. Bhāhyānā lambanam vrittehe esho paratiruttama. The third qualification, uparati or uparama. Anything can be used, both are same. Uparati or uparama. So what is this uparati? That ability, again vritti is there, vrittehe, thought. That ability, bhāhya analambanam, of the mind, by which it doesn't depend upon the bhāhya vishaya. That is the best uparati. Now what does it mean? Not allowing the thoughts to depend upon the sense objects. What it means is the ability to keep the mind in the withdrawn state. The mind has withdrawn from the sense objects through Shama, but there is muhuhu there. If you see Shama, again and again you have to withdraw, because the mind keeps going there. That ability of the mind to keep it withdrawn, that constant, effortless, uninterrupted state of withdrawal is called uparati. Through Shama you have withdrawn, with uparama you see to it that it remains in the withdrawn state. Able to follow? That ability not to allow the mind to go back to the sense object, that is called uparati. The word uparati means, upa means near, rati means to revel. Reveling by remaining near. By remaining near the self, the mind revels. Uparati. So, if one word we have to say, it is the withdrawing ability of the mind. Shama is the quietening ability, Dhamma is the disciplining ability, and uparati is the withdrawing ability of the mind. Okay? 3 over. Now the next one, titiksha. Verse number 24. Sahanam sarva dukkhanam apratikara purvakam chinta vilaparahitam satitiksha nigadyate. That is called titiksha. What is titiksha? Sahanam, endurance. What you are supposed to endure? Sarva dukkhanam, all sorrows. That ability to endure all sorrows. But then very many times we endure with all kinds of grumbling, complaining. We endure helplessly. We get suffocated in that endurance. So here, how should we endure? 3 terms are used. Apratikara purvakam. So these are the possibilities when dukkha comes to our life. What is the possibility? The person who is giving dukkha, we want to take revenge upon that person. He has given me dukkha, I will give him double the dukkha. So what is titiksha? Apratikara purvakam. Never having the attitude of revenge. Why there is no attitude of revenge? Now see, these are all, what you call, born out of wisdom of that person. I will not have that attitude of revenge because he is only a medium through which my own papa karmas are expressing. My papa karma will give me my papa karma phala. So in order to give me sorrow, God has chosen this person. That's all. So who has to be blamed? Silent endurance, because you can't complain to anyone. You have created everything. If you beat that person, that becomes another karma for which again you have to suffer. So better keep quiet. So apratikara purvakam. This is one way we tend to respond to dukkham. What are the another ways? Chinta. What is chinta? This is at the mental state. At the mind state it is worries, fears, tension, anxiety. So whenever dukkha comes, at the mind level, these things happen. Worries, chinta. So titiksha is that ability where you don't have chinta also. Then what is the other possibility? Vilapa. Vilapa means verbally telling your problems to others. Lamenting, complaining, grumbling. So that dukkha you are not able to handle, you want to tell it to someone. Or you keep telling to yourself also if nobody is there. Because who is interested in listening to your problems? If nobody is there, tell yourself loudly. Vilapam it is called, lamenting. So what is titiksha? Lamenting is not titiksha. Vilapa rehitam. Chinta vilapa rehitam. Free from this state. So that state of the mind where even when there are sorrows, this person has no attitude of revenge, no worries, no lamenting, no grumbling, no complaining. He endures that state. Dukkham is there. But he endures it, we can say cheerfully, uncomplainingly. Now how to develop this titiksha? There are so many ways. So one way is of course saying that whatever is coming to me, it is coming to me because of my own prarabdha karma. I might have done some papa karma because of which this particular situation I am stuck. But that attitude is not very healthy attitude. Because you are not cheerful there. It's a kind of helplessness. So the best attitude is to feel that whatever God is doing, He is doing for my good. This is another way of cultivating titiksha, which is a more healthier way. God, whatever is happening to me, I know you are doing it for my own good. At present I may not be able to understand, but one thing I know, it is for my good. This way when you start thinking, you will find you are able to go through all these sorrows cheerfully. But for that you must have faith in God. Titiksha. This is the best attitude, in fact. Another way of going through titiksha is agamapaino nityaha tan titikshasva bharata. Whatever is there in life, everything comes and goes. Even this will pass away. So therefore endure. A time will come when this will pass away. Agamaha apainaha. Whatever has come has to go. Everything is impermanent. Our sorrows are also impermanent only. It's an anitya vastu. It comes and goes. So therefore, when it is there, just endure. It is not going to remain permanently. Sometimes you can develop titiksha by looking at the goal also. You are so interested in attaining that goal that you are ready to go through any amount of suffering. Because the goal is so charming, so inspiring, and therefore these little pinpricks of life, as Gurudev used to say, they don't really affect you. Like how the footballers play, literally risking their life and health and everything. What kind of fouls you find in these football matches. They fracture their leg, but still again the fellow comes back after taking some medicine. The interest in the game is so much that all these little things are nothing for them. So this is called titiksha. So what is titiksha? That ability of the mind never to complain even amidst sorrows, difficulties. So in one word we can say enduring ability. Tattvabodha definition is Shitoshna Sukha Dukkhadi Sahishnutvam. One word. Sahishnutvam, the ability to endure. What? Shita Ushna at the body level, heat and cold and heat. Sukha Dukkha, joy and sorrow at the mind level. Then Mana Apamana at the intellect level. You just endure. How the businessmen do it. They have the goal. What is the goal? Profit is the goal. So this cloth merchant, the people who come, show me this cloth, that cloth, and now they have to, it is perfectly folded and kept. He has to spread it. Ye nahi, wo. The fellows is 10, 20, 30, but this person patiently, without complaining. So titiksha can, at different levels. So here the titiksha is because of the gold. What is the gold? It's a potential customer. This person is, so any amount of pain, any amount of insult, this person is ready to go through. Here that titiksha is not for business. The titiksha is, I must get the nitya vastu. In the process, any amount of suffering, I am ready to endure. Love for the truth makes a person go through all these sufferings. So that is titiksha. What is next one? Verse number 25, Shraddha. Shastrasya guruvakyasya satyabuddhyavadharana sa shraddha kathita sadbhihi yaya vastu palabhyate. So what is Shraddha? Simply translated, it is faith. So here it is said, Avadharana. Avadharana means firm faith. Firm faith. Firm faith in what? Shastrasya Guru Vakyasya. Firm faith in Shastra, the scriptures, and Guru Vakya, the statements made by the teacher. Satya Buddhi, a buddhi, a feeling that what they are telling is true. Satya Buddhi. What they are telling is true. This way, firm faith in the words of the scriptures, in the words of the teacher. Sa Shraddha Kathita Sadbhihi. The wise people call it Shraddha. Yaya Vastu Upalabhyate. This is the first step in gaining Nitya Vastu. It is the first step. Therefore, Mahatma says, Yaya Vastu Upalabhyate. If the person has this Shraddha, know for certain he is going to get it. Shraddhavan, yes, Shraddhavan labhate jnanam. Now, why so much of emphasis is given to Shraddha? Sri, this spirituality is a unique field. Why is it unique? Whatever you experience normally in the state of ignorance, the scriptures, the gurus contradict all your statements. You think, I am this body. The Guru says, sorry, you are not this body. According to me, I am a limited being. The Guru says, you are infinite. According to me, I am in the world. Guru says, the world is in you. According to me, world is the source of happiness. The Guru says, you are the source of your happiness. There is no happiness in the world at all. World is only misery. According to me, there is nothing called God. According to the Guru, there is only God. Now see, according to me, I am Alpa Shaktiman. Guru says, you are Sarva Shaktiman. According to me, I am Alpatnyaha, knowing a very little. Guru says, you are Sarvatnyaha. According to me, I am Alpavyapi. Guru says, you are Sarvavyapi. Literally, every experience of mine is contradicted by the teacher. Now you have two choices. Either to say that the Guru is a crack. What is he telling? Nonsense. Majority of us, we are saying this, and this only one Guru is telling who is totally different. So therefore, when you don't have faith in Guru, what do? You drop that Guru and continue to live in the very same old ways of ignorance. The second option is, you have faith. Of course, the third option is also there. Samshaya. Keep on doubting the Guru. Now and then. That person's condition is miserable. Neither can he leave the Guru, nor can he follow the Guru. So Bhagavad Gita says, Samshayatma vinashyati. Doubting Thomas perishes. Now the third and the best option is this, Satya Buddhi Avadharana, firm faith. What my Guru has said, it has to be true, even though it may contradict my experience. Because my Guru cannot cheat me. I know my Guru is an embodiment of all goodness. How can such a Guru show me the wrong path? How can such a scripture, followed by so many Mahatmas, can show me the wrong path? So if my experience is not matching with the teachings of the scriptures, something is wrong in me. Something is wrong in me. The problem with us is, we have trained our mind to say something is wrong with. The moment or the day when you say something is wrong in me, the real spiritual seeker is born. Till then there is only samsari. And there is no hope for a samsari to know the truth. The first step in spirituality is to say, some problem exists in me, something is wrong in me, I must correct myself. The problem is not with the world, problem is with me. The day you are convinced, that day the door towards light is opened. Otherwise it is utter darkness alone. You may live in 7-star hotel, but the starlight will not be able to remove this ignorance, the darkness of your ignorance. So this Shraddha is something deep within you feel when you listen to the scriptures. You feel that yes, this is right. Something deep within you expresses its openness to be available for this knowledge, to accept this knowledge. What is that within you because of which you are attracted to this knowledge? That thing in you is nothing but an expression of purity of mind. When the mind is pure, that pure mind gets attracted towards purity, a greater purity. Just like a piece of iron is attracted towards a magnet. It is attracted because that is also a piece of iron. But suppose the iron piece is covered with mud, it will not be attracted. Mud is nothing but the impurity of the mind. So as the mud goes away, slowly, slowly, this iron piece starts experiencing an irresistible pull, isn't it, towards the magnet. This irresistible pull of a pure mind unto the truth. The truth is revealed by the Shastras. The truth is revealed by the Gurus. This pull towards the expression of truth, the mediums of truth, that pull is expressed as Shraddha. Something deep within you says, this person must be followed. He is on the right track. So if I follow him, I will be safe. I will reach my destination, If the Shraddha is not there, if the mind is impure, something in you prevents you from following the Shastras and the Guru. So the obstruction is in ourselves. We may find a defect with the Shastras. We may find a defect with the Guru. In fact, I am seeing my own defect, I don't know. I project my defect in others and I see they are defective. Actually, my vision is defective, I don't know. Just like the specs. You put a green specs, you see a green world. You put a yellow specs, you see a yellow world. And you think that world is yellow, world is green. Actually, what is green? Specs. In the same way, we see the world colored by our mind. And the color which you see is the color of your own mind, which we don't understand. A pure mind is a mind which is not a colored mind, which is a crystal clear mind. So that mind is able to see the truth as it is. And a mind which can see the truth as it is will necessarily be attracted towards truth. This call from within to walk the path of truth is called Shraddha. So what is this Shraddha? In a word, we can say believing ability. The ability to trust, believe. Nitya Vastu I am not saying, but I totally believe in the medium through which I get the knowledge of Nitya Vastu. I have trust, though I am not seeing. Faith is the belief in what you do not see, and the reward is you start seeing what you believed in. This is the definition. Faith is the belief. So in the beginning you start with belief only. You don't start with knowledge. Where there is knowledge, belief is not necessary. But Nitya Vastu, you don't see in the beginning, you have to have faith. So, faith is the belief in what you do not see in the beginning. But as you keep walking, what happens? You start seeing what you believed in. The problem with Nitya Vastu is you can't prove it. Through labs, through experiments, in the test tubes, you can't prove that this is the Nitya Vastu. Please see. You can't prove God. You can't prove or disprove God, both. So that is one major problem with spirituality. If suppose there is some facility by which you can be shown, see, this is God and this is what we'll experience after attaining God. If it can be shown experimentally, then this problem wouldn't have been there. This problem of faith wouldn't have been there. You don't need faith then. The problem here is there is a great reality. It cannot be proved. Guru is experiencing it, but he can't transfer that experience to me. He can only indicate it through words. So the only connecting medium between Guru and me is the words which come from him. That total faith in those words, holding on to which you reach the state of Guru, that belief in you because of which you feel like holding on to his words, that is called Shraddha. Right? So if this Shraddha is not there, you will not have faith in the Nitya Vastu. So if you don't have faith in the Nitya Vastu, there is no possibility of attaining Nitya Vastu. The possibility opens up the moment you have faith in the words of the teacher. So therefore this is very, very important virtue. The ability to trust, the believing or trusting ability. This is ability number 5. Next one, verse number 26, which is samadhanam. Sarvada sthapanam buddhehe shuddhe brahmani sarvatha tat samadhanamityuktam natu cettasya lalanam. So this is samadhanam. What is samadhanam? In one word, Tattvabodha definition, chitta ekagrata. Chitta ekagrata. The ability to concentrate. The ability to focus. Chitta ekagrata. That is Tattvabodha definition. So what is Viveka Chudamani definition? Little more elaborate. Bas. Sarvada buddhehe shuddhe brahmani sthapanam. Sarvada, sarvatha. Sarvada means at all times. Sarvatha means completely, totally. Totally what? Buddhehe, of the intellect. Shuddhe brahmani sthapanam. The ability to fix the intellect upon Shuddha Brahman. Pure Brahman. The ability of the mind or the intellect to fix itself upon the reality. The ability to concentrate the mind upon the reality. This ability to concentrate is called samadhanam. Samyak adhanam. Very well placed. Adhanam means to place the mind. Where? In the reality. How? Samyak. Very well. Total concentration. Absolute concentration. Natu chittasya lalanam. Not the oscillation of the mind. Not allowing the mind to oscillate. Lalanam means to oscillate. Not allowing the mind to fluctuate. Not allowing the mind to get agitated, disturbed, wander. But fixing the mind firmly, deeply upon the truth. Now the question is, how will the sadhaka know what is truth? This is where samadhanam culminates. The ability to concentrate he has, but once he gained the knowledge from the teacher, now he knows where to concentrate. Ability is there, now he concentrates upon the nitya vastu. That happens after Shravana, Manana, etc. So this is the ability to concentrate. So what are the different abilities? Ability number 1, Shama. What is it? Ability to quieten. Dama. Ability to discipline. Disciplining ability. Controlling ability. Number 3, Uparati or Uparama. Withdrawing ability. Number 4, Titiksha. Enduring ability. Then number 5, Shraddha. Believing ability. Number 6, Samadhanam. Concentrating or focusing ability. These are all the abilities of the mind. Such a wonderful mind one must possess. Then alone he will be able to do the wonder of detaching from anitya and attaching to nitya. So because he has shama, he is able to quieten the mind. Because he has dhamma, he is able to withdraw the mind from the external distractions. Because he has uparati, he is able to withdraw the mind from the anitya vastu. But even though you have withdrawn from the anitya vastu, lot of vasanas are there. It takes lot of time to remove all of them. So he must have enduring ability. What else to do? Endure the vasanas only. All negativities within. He is able to successfully block the external distraction. But what about the internal distractions? You have to patiently work on it. That patiently working ability is called titiksha. So slowly, all those worldly vasanas you remove without complaining, without grumbling, because it is all your own creation. All the samskaras you have gathered in your unintelligent past. So you can't blame anyone. So endure them, purify them. And then with Shraddha you have belief in the Nitya Vastu. So from Anitya now you have to go to Nitya. So the faith gives you the belief in the Nitya Vastu, and the Samadhanam allows you to focus upon the Nitya Vastu. See, everything is done by the mind only. So these are the Shamadhi Shatka Sampati. It is called as Sampati. It's a wealth. What we call as Daivi Sampati. It's a divine wealth. In fact, it is a real wealth. It's a real wealth of a person. All the other wealth is transitory, impermanent, ineffective. Yes, some bodily needs can be satisfied. To that extent, all the other wealth has its own purpose. So, Laukika Sampat and Devi Sampat, you just cannot compare. One is total trash. Other is divine. Intelligent person is the one who converts the worldly wealth into divine wealth through dana, dharma, etc. He's an intelligent person. Because everything in your life is going to depend upon this wealth. In which family you are going to be born. In which body you are going to be born. Whether you are going to be born in a human body or an animal body or an insect body, plant body, stone body. That is determined by this wealth. Which environment you are going to be born. With what abilities you are going to be born. Whether head will be proper or not. So many varieties of possibilities are there. Mandabuddhi people born. What to do? Go through. So buddhi has to be intact. Indriyas have to be intact. And moreover, the desire for the truth also should be there. Only then the life is going to have its fulfillment. Viveka has to be there. All these things, who decides? Not your worldly wealth. Unfortunately, we can't purchase it through worldly wealth. Isn't it? One person may be a Karodpati, but in life he may be a Rodpati. So wise person is the one who really makes use of his life in order to gain this sampat as much as possible. He is also a greedy person. He is a number one greedy person. But only thing is, his greed is not for the worldly wealth, his greed is for the divine wealth. Right? So sixfold sampatti we have seen. Now comes the fourth qualification, which is mumukshutvam. What is the first one, by the way? Vivekaha. Second one, Vairagyaha. Third one, Shamadhi Shatka Sampattihi. Fourth one, mumukshutvam. What is this mumukshutvam? Verse number 27. Ahankārādi dehantān bandhāna jñāna kalpitān swasvarūpāvabodhena moktumichhā mumukṣuta. This ichha is called mumukṣuta, this desire. So what is Tattvabodha definition? Moksho me bhūyāt iti ichha. The desire, may I be liberated. This desire is called mumukshutva. Now here, this desire is the desire of a very, of a person who has done Shravana Manana. This moksham, in the beginning it's not very clear. What is this moksha? Clarity is not there. But as you do Shravana Manana, clarity comes. You become very specific of what you badly need. What is it that you crave? That specific need is what is clearly mentioned here. A clear-cut desire, which is born out of listening to Shravana and Manana. So let us see what it is. Moktumichha mumukshuta. This desire to liberate. Now what is this desire to liberate? Desire to liberate from what? Bandhan. From the bondage. But bondage with what? ahankaradi dehantan bandhan. Bondage with ahankaradi, beginning from ahankara, ending in body. So in short, the bondage with body, mind, intellect, ego, etc. That desire to liberate oneself from the bondage of the body, mind, intellect, etc. How did this bondage come from? Ajnana kalpitan, which has come because of ignorance. The bondage is not a real bondage. Not that some Fevicol you apply and then you are bound. No. It is not a physical bondage. It is a bondage born out of wrong notion. It is a notional bondage. It is a bondage born out of ignorance. So what does it mean? Actually you are not bound. You think you are bound. Bas. It is only a thought-based bondage. It is only an illusory bondage. It is only an imaginary bondage. A bondage which actually doesn't exist, but you think it exists. Not only you think it exists, you behave as though it exists. Right? So now how to remove this ignorance which has caused this bondage? How to remove? This person is very clear. Swarupa avabodhena, alone this ignorance can be removed. Swaswarupa avabodhena means by knowing one's own true self. The knowledge of the self alone can remove this ignorance. Only if the ignorance is removed, bondage is removed. Only when the bondage is removed, I will be free. Clear cut understanding. Clarity is there. Before he came to the Guru, this clarity was not there. In the beginning also moksha was there, but he was not clear as to what is he seeking. Only one thing he knew, the world is anitya, the world is full of problem, the world is full of impermanence, the impermanent thing is giving me lot of pain, this much he knew. I want to somehow get rid of this pain, this much also was aware. But how to get rid of that pain, he was not aware. He was trying to run away from the world, escape from the world, not knowing how to end his suffering. But now, after having taken refuge in the Guru, after having gained the knowledge of the scriptures, though he is not a Mahatma or a Jnani, but clarity has come as to what will put an end to my suffering. So this clarity is what is seen in this definition. This is what happens in our life also. In the beginning there is no clarity. There is all confusion. But slowly as you listen to the scriptures, clarity comes. And what is the greatest benefit of clarity? Your entire energy you can fix upon what you desire. When there is clarity, there is single-pointedness. When there is single-pointed approach, you arrive at your destination quickly. There is no distraction. Lesser the distraction, faster is the progress. And therefore the first thing we must gain is clarity in thinking. Our understanding should be very clear. What am I seeking in the name of liberation? Is it going to some world, Vaikuntha, Kailasa, this, etc.? That is lack of clarity. Is it becoming this God or that God? That is lack of clarity. In the beginning, all this lack of clarity is acceptable. The scriptures also, encourage it, saying that there's a wonderful world. Vaikuntha is there, Kailasa is there, you will become an assistant of God. Sayujya, Sarupya, Samipya, Salokya. You can go to God, go to the world of God. Remain at the feet of God. Serve Him, become like Him. These are all temptations. The ice candies for the immature ones. For the childish minds, these are all the candies. The scriptures do that. And that Bhagavan is also beautiful. Chaturbhujadhari. Shankha Chakra Gadha Padma. And this person is very much attracted to the beautiful form of God. He is more attracted to the gold here and there. If this God has so many gold, So if I seek Him, He will be able to give me the same thing. Understand? Slowly the scriptures pull this person to this level. A time comes when you are very clear about what you are seeking. And once you are clear, know for sure that you have got it. Because now it's only a matter of time. Right? So this is Mukshutvam. Now a beautiful verse comes next. Because a question may arise, out of all these qualities, Bhagavan, tell me which is the most important. What is that most important thing because of which I can be sure that I will get everything? Now suddenly Bhagavan uses a unique kind of verse. Let us see verse number 32. Mokshakarana samagriyam bhaktireva gariyasi swaswarupānusandhānam bhaktirityavidhīyate. Yes, mokshakarana samagriyam, among all the means which will give us liberation, which is the greatest, the highest, the best, the noblest, Bhagavan says, Bhakti eva. What is bhakti? Devotion to God alone is the best means, the ultimate means. Why Bhagavan says so? If you have this one thing called bhakti, you will have everything else. You name it, you will have it if you have bhakti. Shama, will it have? Suppose you have bhakti, you just observe your own experience when heart is welled up with devotion. Just observe. What is the state of mind? It is absolutely at peace. Dhamma. What about the sense organs? Fully controlled. Uparati. Totally withdrawn. Titiksha. You are able to forgive anyone and everyone. Isn't it? When the heart is filled with devotion, just look at the properties of that mind. It is a divine mind. It is a wonder mind, which will have all these abilities. Shama, Dhamma, Uparati, Titiksha, Shraddha, Samadhanam, everything you will find if your mind is filled with devotion. You will have Viveka also, you will have Mumukshutvam also, you will have Vairagya also. You are not interested in anything, you are just soaked in that bliss of the self. That's why Bhagavan says, if there is one thing developing which everything else automatically comes, it is bhakti alone. So in the beginning, those bhakti will be immature bhakti, artha bhakti, artharthi bhakti, no problem. No problem. Go on, because that is also a kind of bhakti only. You are having love for God because He gives you something. In the beginning, what kind of bhakti we will have? God is the means, world is the goal. This is the immature bhakti. You seek God not that you want God, you seek God because you want something from God. This is called immature bhakti or artha bhakti, artharthi bhakti. You are in trouble, you want God to solve your problem, therefore you go to God. This is called artha bhakti. You want something, name, fame, power, position, wealth, etc. Therefore you seek God. That is called artharthi bhakti. These two bhaktis are immature, no doubt. These two bhaktis are selfish, no problem. But then slowly the very same bhakta starts evolving into the higher. And what is that? Jitnyasu bhakti. He becomes a jitnyasu bhakta. So that is what is pointed here. As a person evolves, later on his bhakti takes a totally different nature. And what is the culmination of bhakti? Here it is. Swaswarupa anusandhanam bhaktihi ityabhidiyate. The final expression of bhakti is in terms of self-enquiry. Swaswarupa anusandhanam. Enquiring into one's own nature becomes a nature of devotion. You are not interested in the world. You are not interested in pleasure. You are only interested in one thing. Who is that God? who is seated in me as my own self. So now you are constantly in search of God, not somewhere outside of yourself. You are searching Him right where you experience your presence. This is the matured form of bhakti, the culmination of bhakti. Next step is bas, jnanam, over. So what is bhakti? You may say japa is bhakti, puja is bhakti, tirtha kshetra, etc. is bhakti. That is fine. But what is the matured form of bhakti? Trying to know yourself as you are. This is the ultimate form of bhakti. Such a person is a real bhakta. He may not be crying and weeping, etc. But he is a real bhakta. Very many times we have all these kinds of wrong notion. A person who is crying a lot, great bhakta. There is no such thing. The real bhakta is the one who is always paying attention to God. So what is bhakti actually? Love for God, isn't it? How is love for anything expressed? Love for anything is expressed by paying attention. Whatever you love, you pay attention. A mother loves the child, so therefore, mother's attention is always upon the child. The greater the love, the greater the attention paid. So here, this sadhaka knows that God is none other than my own self. It is the very consciousness in me. So his attention is where? His attention is upon consciousness, which is there every moment. 24/7 it is shining. His attention is always there. This constant paying attention upon to your nature is the expression of greatest bhakti. So the one thing which will take you there is bhakti alone. Devi hesha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya mam eva ye prapadyante. One who seeks me alone. Maya metam taranti. Many times people try to acquire sadhana chatushtayam without bhakti. Murkha shiromani number 1. Let me think, let me do shamadama, etc. Control of the mind and withdrawal of the mind and study of the scriptures. Fool. Arre, first surrender. Become a nobody. Become humble. And then you will find that all these things it just comes to you. If you have bhakti, bas, you have everything. If bhakti is not there, you may blabber these terms. You may define. You may give scholarly lectures. But deep within you know, you are 00. You are hollow. There are people who study all these Vedanta, etc. for scholarship, for PhD, for MA, etc. They themselves come and confess that even though we have studied everything, we know all the definition, but the experience which they are talking of, we have not gained. Why they have not gained? This bhakti is missing. All the study was only to get some name, fame, award, reward. Let my name become longer and longer, MHD, PhD, this, that. If you are so interested in yourself, how can you be interested in God? If you want to attain God, you have to empty yourself. That emptying they did not do, they only did filling up. So it is filled with ego, puffed with ego. The only thing is that ego is with Vedantic knowledge, that's all. Vedantic knowledge became a means to puff up their ego. The one thing which can puncture that puffing up is this bhakti. So it's absolutely true. Moksha karana samagryam bhakti reva gariyasi. Beautiful verse. So this way we have completed the qualification of a student. Now we will come to, what is the next topic? Qualification of a teacher. That we will see next.
Om sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayah, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ॐ।